That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun crested the jagged rim of the canyon at precisely 0530 hours, casting long shadows across the arid floor where the SEAL team assembled. Dust motes hung in the still air, stirred only by the faint whine of a distant Black Hawk on approach. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood at the head of his unit, his boots planted firm on the cracked earth, the weight of his rucksack a familiar anchor. At his side, Rex, the Belgian Malinois K9 handler's partner, sat rigid, ears perked, black eyes scanning the horizon. Rex's harness gleamed under the first light, the leather worn smooth from years of shared patrols. "Platoon, attention!" Hale's voice cut through the quiet, steady and unyielding. The team snapped to, 14 men in desert camouflage, rifles slung across their chests, faces etched with the discipline of endless drills. This was Coronado's extended field exercise in the Mojave, simulated reconnaissance in hostile terrain, testing bonds forged in salt water and sand. Hale, a decade into his service, had run these ops 100 times. His role as team lead meant precision, every movement synchronized, every command absolute. "Handler Reyes, report," Hale said, turning to Staff Sergeant Elena Reyes, the unit's K9 specialist. She stood a step behind him, her posture mirroring his, shoulders square, gaze forward. At 32, Reyes was one of the few women in the SEAL pipeline to qualify for K9 ops, her bond with Rex, the quiet envy of the team. The dog had been her shadow since Benning, detecting explosives in Fallujah and insurgents in the Hindu Kush. Now, in this canyon mock-up of Afghan ravines, Rex's nose was their edge. "All clear, sir," Reyes replied, her voice clipped, professional. She placed a gloved hand on Rex's head, feeling the subtle tension in his muscles. The dog didn't flinch. He leaned into her touch, a silent affirmation of trust. Their partnership wasn't sentiment, it was survival. Reyes had trained him through scent detection grids and night insertions, teaching him to read her cues as she read his alerts. In the field, Rex's bark could save lives. Off duty, his steady presence grounded her in the isolation of command. The exercise commenced with mechanical efficiency. "Alpha Team, advance to waypoint Bravo. Reyes, Rex covers the flanks. Maintain radio silence unless contact." Hale's orders echoed off the canyon walls, the team's boots crunching gravel in unison as they moved out. The air grew warmer, carrying the sharp tang of creosote bushes and the metallic bite of rifle oil. Radios hissed faintly in vests, monitoring vitals and positions. This was order incarnate, the chain of command a lifeline in chaos. Half a mile in, the routine fractured. The team crested a narrow ridge, the canyon narrowing to a sheer drop on one side, boulders scattered like forgotten sentinels. Reyes knelt beside Rex, scanning for simulated IED markers, orange flags hidden in the brush. The dog worked methodically, nose low, tail low, his paws silent on the stone. Hale signaled a halt, binoculars raised to the opposite ledge, where the exercise's hostiles waited in mock ambush. Then it came, a faint cry, human and raw, echoing from the canyon's throat. Not part of the script. The team froze, weapons up. "Sound off," Hale whispered into his comms. Affirmatives crackled back, but the cry repeated, weaker, from a shadowed crevice high on the narrow ledge above. Reyes's pulse quickened. It sounded like a voice. Pained. Desperate. Civilians weren't supposed to be here. This was restricted training ground, miles from any trail. "Reyes, hold position," Hale ordered, his tone brooking no debate. But Rex reacted first. The dog's head snapped up, a low growl rumbling in his chest. He barked sharply once, twice, straining toward the ledge, his body taut as a bowstring. The sound reverberated, pulling every eye in the team. Reyes felt it in her gut. The alert wasn't for threat, it was for need. She'd seen Rex distinguish between danger and distress before, in the dust of deployments where screams blurred with wind. "Sir, that's no sim," she said, keeping her voice level, eyes locked on Hale. "Rex is signaling life. Someone's hurt up there." The lieutenant lowered his binoculars. Face hardening. Protocol was clear: secure the objective first. Civilians in a training zone meant a breach, possibly a setup, but extraction required clearance from base command. Diverting now could scrub the op, cost the team their eval scores. "Negative, Sergeant. We've finished the route. Radio it in." Hale's words were iron, but doubt flickered in his eyes. The cry echoed again, fainter, like a plea swallowed by stone. The team shifted uneasily, boots scraping, the weight of inaction settling like dust. Reyes glanced at Rex, who whined softly, pawing the ground, his loyalty pulling her toward the impossible choice. She straightened, meeting Hale's gaze. "With respect, sir, that could be a child or one of ours gone off script. Rex doesn't lie." The words hung, a subtle defiance in the rigid air. Hale's jaw tightened, the chain demanded obedience, but the canyon's echo mocked it. Around them, the team watched, silent witnesses to the fracture. Radio static broke the tension, base acknowledging the anomaly, but orders pending. Reyes clipped Rex's lead shorter, her hand steady despite the tremor in her chest. Years of drills had drilled obedience into her bones, but this moment tested deeper, duty to command or to the life Rex had scented. The dog's eyes met hers, unwavering, as the cry faded into wind. Hale turned away, signaling advance, but the team's rhythm faltered, the canyon holding its breath. In that suspended beat, Reyes weighed the cost. Her career, the unit's trust, against the moral pull. Obey and proceed, defy and risk it all. The ledge loomed, narrow and unforgiving, a symbol of the line she now walked. The exercise continued, but the morning's order had cracked, the echo of that cry, a harbinger of reckoning to come. The team's advance resumed with forced precision, boots grinding against the canyon floor as Hale led them deeper into the simulated ravine. The sun climbed higher, baking the red rock walls and turning the air thick with heat that seeped through their fatigues. Reyes kept Rex close, the dog's flanks brushing her leg with each step, his earlier bark still echoing in her mind like an unanswered radio call. The lead in her hand felt heavier now, a tether not just to her partner but to the choice she'd deferred. Hale's order hung over them, unspoken but palpable, the chain of command an invisible wire pulling them forward. "Maintain formation," Hale murmured into his comms, his voice steady as he scanned the terrain ahead. The lieutenant's profile was sharp against the glare, years of command etching lines around his eyes. He'd pulled Reyes into the unit after her quals at Dam Neck, recognizing her edge with Rex as vital for high-threat insertions. But protocol was his North Star. Deviations invited audits, and in the SEALs, a scrubbed eval could ripple through promotions, deployments, even retirements. The cry had been real, no doubt, but Base Command's response was a curt, "Monitor and report, no green light for diversion." Civilians in restricted zones were rare intrusions, often hikers ignoring signs, but protocol demanded the op first. Reyes adjusted her vest, the weight of her sidearm a cold reminder of readiness. Rex's nose twitched, still questing despite the lead, his ears flicking toward the ledge above. The dog had saved her life twice, once in a dust-choked village where his alert uncovered a hidden cache, another during a night op when he'd frozen at a tripwire she hadn't seen. Their bond was forged in silence. Her hand signals his commands, his alerts her instincts. Off-duty, in the dim glow of barracks lamps, she'd brush his coat while reviewing after-action reports, the rhythm a quiet anchor against the isolation of her role. Women in Spec Ops carried extra scrutiny. One misstep, And the whispers turned to formal inquiries. The canyon narrowed further, forcing the team into single file along a shale-strewn path. Radio chatter was minimal, position checks, wind readings. But the unease simmered. Petty Officer Lang, Reyes's point man, glanced back, his eyes meeting hers briefly. "That sound." "Kid," he whispered, low enough to skirt insubordination. Lang was green, fresh from Bud S., his loyalty to the team raw and untested. Reyes shook her head fractionally, keeping her gaze forward. "Focus on the route," she replied, her tone even, but her mind raced. Ignoring it felt like abandoning a wounded comrade, the kind of choice that haunted after-action debriefs. Another cry pierced the air, sharper this time, carrying words fragmented by distance. "Help! Please!" It bounced off the walls, freezing the platoon mid-stride. Hale raised a fist, halting them in the shadow of an overhang. The team dropped to knees, rifles trained outward, scanning for threats. Rex strained against his lead, a series of urgent barks erupting from his throat, his body arrowing toward the ledge. The sound cut through the tension like a knife, drawing every head upward. Up there, perhaps 50 feet, a narrow outcrop jutted from the rock face, veiled in scrub and shadow. No movement visible, but the cry's origin was unmistakable. "Base, this is Hale. Confirm anomaly. Possible civilian distress. Request extract authorization." Hale's transmission was crisp, his free hand signaling Reyes to quiet the dog. She knelt beside Rex, murmuring, "Easy, boy," her palm firm on his muzzle. The Malinois whined, eyes locked on the ledge, his training warring with instinct. He'd been conditioned for alerts, not rescues, but his senses didn't distinguish drills from reality. Reyes's heart pounded. She'd seen dogs like him push boundaries in the field, their loyalty overriding handlers' hesitation. Static crackled back from base. Negative on extract. "Lieutenant, secure objective, then vector helo for sweep. No deviations. Eval in progress." Hale's shoulders tensed, the denial a slap against the urgency. The team exchanged glances, the silence heavy with the weight of it. In training, they drilled for combat saves, but this blurred lines, a life hanging in the balance, protocol chaining their hands. Reyes rose slowly, her voice cutting through. "Sir, Rex is locked on. That's not wind or echo. If it's a hiker, they're exposed. No gear, no comms. We can't just—" "Stand down, Sergeant," Hale interrupted, his eyes meeting hers, a flicker of conflict beneath the steel. He wasn't unmoved. Reyes knew him well enough to see the jaw clench, the subtle shift in his stance. Hale had lost men to rigid orders before, in the sandbox where split-second calls meant everything. But here, in the Mojave's controlled chaos, bending meant risking the unit's certification, the kind that kept them funded, deployed, whole. "We radioed it. Helo's en route post-objective. Your inputs noted." The words landed like gravel underfoot, the chain tightening. Reyes clipped Rex's lead secure, but her hand lingered on his collar. Feeling the rapid pulse beneath, the dog's trust was absolute. He'd follow her into fire, and in that moment she felt the pull, obey and preserve the order that defined them, or act and fracture it. The team remounted the advance, but the rhythm was off, steps hesitant, eyes drifting upward. Lang muttered under his breath, "Damn protocol," earning a sharp look from Hale. As they pushed toward Waypoint Charlie, the cries grew intermittent, each one a needle in the discipline. Reyes scanned the ledge through her optics, spotting a flash of color. Fabric, perhaps a jacket, dangling precariously. No child from the angle, but a figure slumped, unmoving now. Her breath caught, time was bleeding out. Rex pawed the ground, whining low, his alert a living accusation. In the SEAL ethos, they were guardians of the vulnerable, yet the system demanded sacrifice for the mission. Reyes weighed it, her oath to Hale, to the team, against the oath deeper still, to protect, no matter the cost. The canyon wind picked up, whipping dust across their faces, carrying the faint scent of creosote and desperation. Hale signaled a low crawl ahead, but Reyes hesitated, her position breaking formation for a beat. "Sir," she said, voice low but firm, "permission to scout the base of the ledge. Rex can confirm without full divert." It was a compromise, procedural, but laced with the defiance she'd swallowed earlier. Hale paused, the team holding breath around him. The lieutenant's gaze held hers, assessing, the woman who'd earned her trident through grit, the handler whose instincts had pulled them through Sims unscathed. "Denied," he said finally, but softer, the word costing him. "Trust the process, Reyes." She nodded, falling back in line, but the fracture widened. Rex's eyes bored into her, a silent question. The objective loomed, but the real test unfolded in the spaces between orders, the moral canyon they now navigated, where loyalty to command clashed with the cry that wouldn't fade. As the team crested the next rise, the helo's distant thrum promised resolution, but Reyes knew some echoes demanded more than reports. The morning's routine had become a proving ground, and her choice inevitable. The helo's rotors thrummed like a distant heartbeat as the team crested the final rise toward Waypoint Charlie. The canyon's walls closing in like silent judges. Dust devils swirled at their feet, kicked up by the quickening wind, carrying the acrid scent of sun-baked shale and the faint, underlying rot of something organic, perhaps a trapped animal, or worse. Reyes's boots scraped against the loose gravel, each step a deliberate effort to maintain the formation that now felt like a cage. Rex trotted beside her, his tongue lolling slightly in the rising heat, but his focus remained fixed upward, ears cocked toward the ledge where the cries had dwindled to intermittent whimpers. Hale signaled a perimeter sweep, his gloved hand slicing the air in precise arcs. The team fanned out, rifles at low ready, scanning the mock ambush points embedded in the terrain. Orange markers simulating enemy positions. This was the eval's crux, breach and clear under simulated fire, with Rex's sweeps for IEDs integrated into the flow. Protocol dictated seamless execution. Any pause could flag hesitation in the after-action review, a black mark on the unit's record. Hale's voice crackled over the comms, low and measured. "Reyes, integrate flank coverage, no distractions." "Affirmative, sir," she replied, her tone clipped as she unclipped Rex's lead just enough for him to work the edges. The dog moved with practiced economy, nose to the ground, weaving through the scrub without a sound. Reyes followed, her eyes darting between him and the ledge above, now partially obscured by a jutting overhang. The figure she'd glimpsed earlier, a flash of blue against the ochre rock, hadn't stirred. No gear visible, no signaling device. If it was a civilian, they were in deep trouble, exposed to the elements and the drop below. Her mind replayed the base's denial, secure the objective first. But the whimpers persisted, faint as radio static, pulling at the thread of her resolve. Lang dropped to a knee nearby, covering Reyes's sector, his young face slick with sweat under his helmet. "Sergeant's got the nose for it," he muttered, nodding toward Rex, but his eyes betrayed the shared doubt. The petty officer had idolized Reyes since Qualls, seeing in her the grit that bridged the gender lines in their world. Whispers in the barracks often circled her, admiration laced with the old skepticism, but moments like this stripped it bare. Lang's rifle swept the horizon, but his posture leaned toward the rock face, as if willing the cries to stop. The sweep hit a snag at the waypoint's core, a simulated breach point chain-link mock-up rigged with tension wires. Hale directed the breach team forward, his commands a steady cadence amid the wind's howl. "Breach on my mark. Reyes, clear the approaches." She nodded, signaling Rex to quarter the left flank. The dog complied instantly, his paws silent on the stone, body low and alert. But as he neared the base of the ledge, a sheer 40-foot climb pocked with handholds, Rex froze, hackles rising. He barked again, sharp and insistent, pawing at a narrow fissure where the rock met the canyon floor. Reyes's pulse spiked. She dropped beside him, scanning the crevice. A shallow cave-in, perhaps from recent rains, partially blocked by debris. No explosive markers here. This was off-script. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, her hand on his collar, steadying him. Rex whined, nose thrusting into the gap, dislodging pebbles that clattered down. The whimper came again, clearer now from within, muffled, human, laced with pain. Not a child, but a voice strained by exhaustion. "Please, can't move." The team paused mid-breach, heads turning at the sound. Hale's eyes locked on Reyes from across the site, his face a mask of controlled tension. "Sergeant, report," he said over comms, voice edged with warning. The breach hung incomplete, the eval's timer ticking invisibly in their minds. Base would log the delay, question the focus. Reyes rose, keeping her body between Rex and the team, her decision crystallizing in the heat's press. Obedience had its place, but this was the line. A life, audible, immediate. Ignoring it would etch regret into her service, the kind that lingered in quiet watches. "Sir, contact in the fissure. Civilian injured. Rex confirms. It's not Sim." Sounds like a fall victim. Her words carried across the open ground, drawing the platoon inward. The wind gusted, whipping sand against their goggles, but the air thickened with the weight of exposure. Hale approached, boots deliberate, his presence commanding silence. "Protocol. Reyes, we report. We wait for the helo vector. Diverting risks the entire op." The team formed a loose semicircle, weapons down but eyes sharp, witnesses now to the standoff. Petty Officer Grant, the senior corpsman, shifted uneasily, his medkit slung heavy. "Could be hypothermic, sir. Up there, no shade. Dehydration sets in fast." His input was measured, professional, but it amplified the fracture. Hale's jaw worked, the lieutenant weighing the chain against the oath. He'd mentored Reyes, pushed her through the pipeline's rigors, but this defiance tested their bond. "Stand down. That's an order." Reyes met his gaze, her hand firm on Rex's lead as the dog strained toward the fissure. "Understood, sir. But if we wait, they might not make it." The words were respectful, laced with the quiet authority of her instincts. Rex barked once more, the sound echoing off the walls, a raw plea that no command could silence. The platoon held its breath, the canyon's vastness underscoring the intimacy of the moment. Hale's radio crackled, Base querying the delay, but he muted it, his decision suspended in the dust-choked air. In that beat, Reyes moved, not a full breach, but a calculated step. She uncoiled a climbing line from her pack, clipping it to Rex's harness as an anchor. "Just a visual, sir. Rex scouts the base. 30 seconds. It was insubordination wrapped in procedure, her body blocking the team's full view as she directed the dog forward. Rex scrambled into the fissure, his form disappearing into shadow. Barks muffled but urgent. Hale's hand twitched toward his comms, but he held, the conflict etching deeper lines on his face. Seconds stretched, the team frozen in procedural limbo. Then Rex emerged, dragging a scrap of fabric in his jaws, a child's backpack, soaked with what smelled like blood in the dry air. The whimpers sharpened, the voice breaking through, "Help me." Legs caught. Reyes pulled the pack free, her gloved hands steady as she radioed Base directly, bypassing the chain for the first time. "This is Reyes. Confirmed civilian, possible fracture. Request immediate extract." Hale stepped forward, his voice low thunder. "Sergeant, that's enough." But the damage was done, the act visible, the reckoning ignited. The platoon murmured, loyalty fracturing along moral lines. The helo's thrum grew louder, slicing the tension, but Reyes knew this defiance would ripple through reports, tribunals, the unyielding machinery of command. Rex sat at her feet, eyes on her, his trust unbroken. The canyon watched, wind carrying the echo of her choice. A cry answered at the cost of order. "Come in where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach." The helo's rotors chopped the air like a metronome of impending judgment, descending in a controlled spiral toward the canyon floor as the team held position at Waypoint Charlie. Dust billowed in choking clouds, coating tongues and goggles, the gritty taste mingling with the metallic tang of adrenaline. Reyes knelt beside Rex, the dog's flanks heaving from his brief scout into the fissure, the child's backpack clutched in her gloved hand like evidence in a tribunal. The fabric was torn, stained dark with what her nose confirmed as blood, fresh, human, cutting through the desert's dry pall. The whimpers from the crevice had quieted to ragged breaths, each one a fragile thread pulling against the weight of protocol. Hale stood over her, his shadow long in the settling haze, face carved from the same unyielding rock as the canyon walls. "Sergeant Reyes, stand down immediately," he repeated, his voice a low command, laced with the strain of command's burden. The lieutenant's eyes flicked to the backpack, then back to her, the conflict raw beneath his discipline. He'd built this unit on trust, Reyes's skills with Rex integral to their edge, but her bypass of the chain via direct radio had cracked the foundation. Base command would log it, dissect it in the after-action, insubordination during eval, potential compromise of operational security. The team encircled them loosely, rifles slung but postures rigid, the perimeter forgotten in the breach's aftermath. Petty Officer Lang edged closer, his helmet tilted toward the fissure, sweat carving tracks through the dust on his cheeks. "Sir, the helos here. Let's get them out," he said, the words slipping past protocol, his green loyalty tipping toward Reyes. Grant, the corpsman, nodded subtly, his medkit already unzipped, bandages prepped. The platoon's silence amplified the rotor wash, eyes shifting between Hale and the ledge above, where the narrow outcrop now revealed more. A small figure, perhaps 10 years old, wedged in a rockfall, one leg pinned, face pale against the scrub. Radio static pierced the din as base responded to Reyes's transmission. "Reyes, this is command. Extract authorized, medevac priority. Hale confirmed team status." The lieutenant's jaw tightened. The green light came too late, after her initiative had forced their hand. He keyed his comms, voice steady. "Affirmative. Civilian confirmed, juvenile male, possible entrapment, securing site for helo landing." But as he spoke, his gaze bored into Reyes. A silent promise of debriefs to come. The chain demanded accountability. Her act, though right, had exposed the rigidity's flaws. Reyes rose, clipping the backpack to her vest, her movements deliberate to mask the tremor in her fingers. Rex pressed against her leg, whining softly, his nose questing toward the fissure as if to will the boy free. The dog's loyalty was her anchor. The Malinois' alerts had threaded through their shared history, from the humid nights of K9 Qualls, where she'd learned to read his subtlest cues, to the sterile calm of post-mission kennels, where she'd clean his paws while processing the day's weight. Now, that bond had propelled her across the line, her conscience overriding the orders etched into her service record. The helo touched down 50 yards out, skids grinding shale, the downdraft flattening the creosote and sending pebbles skittering like fleeing orders. 2 PJs, para-rescue jumpers, leapt out, bags slung, helmets bobbing as they double-timed toward the team. "Situation?" The lead PJ barked, eyes scanning the fissure. Grant stepped forward, briefing crisp. "Entrapped civilian, lower leg fracture likely, dehydration secondary, no vitals yet, tight squeeze." The PJ nodded, uncoiling a litter and harness lines, his partner already rigging ascenders for the climb. Hale directed the team to clear the zone, voices overlapping in efficient cadence. "Perimeter secure. Lang, cover East Ridge. Grant, assist medevac." But Reyes volunteered first, her voice cutting through. "Sir, permission to support ascent." Rex cleared the base. knows the scent. It was procedural cover, but Hale's denial came swift. "Negative, Sergeant. You and your K9 hold here. Debrief after." The words landed heavy, isolating her in the team's midst, the defiance now public, witnessed by every set of eyes. As the PJs began the climb, ropes snaking up the sheer face, carabiners clicking like judgments, the platoon watched in taut silence. The boy stirred at their approach, a weak cry escaping. "Mom! It hurts!" The sound twisted in Reyes's gut, echoing the moral canyon she'd crossed. She'd chosen compassion over command, but the cost unfurled. Hale's sidelong glances, the subtle shifts in posture from her teammates, admiration from some, wariness from others. In the SEAL world, integrity was currency, but unchecked initiative could label her a loose cannon, ripple through evals, stall her path to warrant officer. Rex sat alert at her feet, his black eyes tracking the ascent, a low rumble in his chest as the PJs reached the ledge. The lead jumper's voice carried down. "Got visual, stable but pinned bad, need leverage." They worked methodically, Jax and Shims easing the rock, the boy's whimpers punctuating the strain. Minutes stretched, the helo idling, rotors a constant thrum underscoring the tension below. Lang sidled up to Reyes, voice low. "You did right, Sarge. Dog knew." She nodded fractionally, hand on Rex's head, feeling the warmth of his fur against the chill of consequence. Loyalty like his didn't question. It simply was. The extraction succeeded with mechanical precision. The boy, secured to the litter, lowered slowly as the team held the line below. Medics swarmed him on the ground, IV lines threading, vitals beeping steady. Hale oversaw it all, his commands unerring, but when the helo lifted off, carrying the civilian toward Coronado's medbay, the lieutenant turned to Reyes. "Report to me post-op, Sergeant. Full account." His tone was neutral, professional, but the undercurrent promised scrutiny, statements, reviews, the institutional grind that tested resolve as much as any op. The team remounted the exercise, but the rhythm was irrevocably altered. Steps heavier, chatter subdued. The canyon's echoes now laced with the boys' fading cries. Reyes walked Rex on a loose lead, the dog's tail low but steady, their bond a quiet defiance amid the order's restoration. She'd acted on conscience, sparked a rescue, but the reckoning loomed. Investigations into the breach, questions of her judgment, the ripple through the chain. In the fading light, as the sun dipped behind the rims, casting the ravine in long shadows, Reyes felt the weight of it all. The moral victory bittersweet, the system's justice a slow, unyielding march. The morning's routine had evolved into legend, but for her, the true test lay ahead. In the quiet rooms where words became verdicts, the sun had dipped low over the canyon rims by the time the team humped back to the extraction point. The Black Hawk's earlier dust still settling like a veil over the shale. Reyes's boots crunched in sync with the platoon's, but the formation felt hollow, the usual post-op banter replaced by the low hum of unspoken judgments. Rex padded at her side, his harness dusted with grit from the Fisher Scout, his steady gait a counterpoint to the knot in her chest. The backpack from the boy, now tagged as evidence, hung from her ruck, its weight a tangible reminder of the line she'd crossed. Hale led from the front, his silhouette rigid against the orange glow, radio clipped silent on his shoulder. No one spoke of the rescue. Protocol forbade it until debrief. Base camp materialized at dusk. Tents pitched in orderly rows under floodlights that buzzed like distant insects. The Mojave's chill crept in with the shadows, carrying the faint scent of diesel from idling generators and the earthy damp of cooling rock. Coronado's evaluators waited at the command tent, clipboards in hand, faces impassive under boonie hats. This was SEAL turf, precision ops in controlled chaos, but the civilian breach had triggered flags, restricted zone violation, unauthorized radio use, delay in eval metrics. Reyes felt the eyes on her as they stacked gear, the team's subtle nods her only anchor. Lang unloaded his rifle nearby, murmuring, "Clean extract, Sarge. Kid stable." She nodded back, keeping her expression neutral, but the corpsman's words lingered like radio echo. "Platoon dismissed for chow. Reyes, Hale, my tent, 1900 hours," the lead evaluator announced, his voice flat as desert pan. The team dispersed to the mess line, trays clattering with MREs heated over sternos, the steam rising in thin wisps against the cooling air. Reyes skipped the line, tethering Rex to a post outside the kennel annex, his water bowl sloshing as he lapped steadily. She brushed his coat with quick strokes, the ritual grounding her amid the uncertainty. The dog's eyes met hers, calm and unblinking, his trust a silent rebuke to the doubt gnawing at her. In the field, Rex didn't pass orders. He followed her lead, and now that lead had veered into scrutiny. At 1900 sharp, Reyes entered the command tent, the canvas flap whispering shut behind her. Hale stood at attention beside the folding table, maps and logs spread under a hanging lantern that cast harsh shadows. The evaluator, Captain Ellis, a wiry veteran with salt and pepper stubble, sat opposite, flanked by a JAG rep in crisp khakis, notepad open. The air smelled of stale coffee and ink, the tent's confines amplifying the formality. "Sergeant Reyes, take a seat," Ellis said, gesturing to a metal chair that scraped against the packed dirt floor. She complied, posture straight, hands folded on her knees, Rex's absence a void at her side, canines barred from inquiries. "Walk us through the anomaly," Ellis began, his tone procedural, eyes flicking to a recorder whirring on the table. Hale shifted minutely, his gaze forward, but Reyes caught the tension in his shoulders, the man who'd mentored her now, bound by the same chain. She recounted it methodically. The initial cry at 062, Rex's alert, the waypoint halt, her direct radio at the fissure. No embellishment, just facts, timestamps pulled from memory like after-action logs. "The boy was entrapped, sir. Estimated 10 years old. Lower leg pinned under approximately 2 tons of shale. Rex confirmed scent. Blood. Distress. Helo extract at 075. Vitals stabilized en route." The JAG rep jotted notes, his pen scratching like claws on stone. "And Lieutenant Hale's orders?" Ellis pressed, leaning forward. Reyes met his gaze evenly. "Clear, sir. Secure objective, report to base, no deviation." I acknowledged, but Rex's second alert at the base indicated immediate risk. I initiated visual scout, 30 seconds, and radioed for confirmation. The words hung, the insubordination laid bare. Hale's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Protocol shielded him until his turn. Ellis nodded, flipping a page. "Bypass of chain of command. That's a UCMJ matter, Sergeant. Article 92, failure to obey. The boy's ID checks, local kid, snuck in chasing a stray dog. No threat, but your action halted the eval for 20 minutes. Scores impacted." The tent's lantern flickered, shadows dancing across the maps like fractured loyalties. Reyes felt the weight of it, the system's gears turning, her career on the line. Years of quals, deployments, the quiet nights reviewing Rex's training logs in dim barracks light, all teetering on this moment. She'd sworn to uphold the uniform, but the oath's core was protection, not blind adherence. "Understood, sir," she replied, voice steady. But waiting meant potential loss of life. Rex's training is for detection and alert. He signaled need, not threat. In the field, we'd act. Ellis exchanged a glance with the JAG, the pause stretching taut as a guy line. "Witness statements from the platoon corroborate the alert," the rep interjected, his tone neutral. "Petty Officer Lang, dog knew before we heard." Corpsman Grant, "Delay could have escalated injuries. No one disputes the rescue's success." Hale cleared his throat then, his first words measured. Sergeant Reyes's instincts have saved ops before, Captain. This was a judgment call in gray area, training zone breach, by civilian. It was defense wrapped in protocol, his loyalty threading through the inquiry like a hidden line. The evaluator leaned back, steepling his fingers. Gray areas get audited, Lieutenant. Base Command's initial denial was by the book. Priorities on op integrity. Your team's eval is provisional. Full review at Pendleton tomorrow. Sergeant, you're confined to base pending statements. No contact with witnesses. The dismissal came crisp, the recorder clicking off. Reyes rose, saluting sharply, the motion automatic despite the churn inside. Outside, the night air bit colder, stars pricking the vast sky like distant tracers. She found Rex waiting, tail thumping once, as she unclipped his lead, the simple act a balm. Word spread through the camp like radio chatter, low murmurs in the chow tent, nods in the gear racks. Lang approached as she walked Rex's perimeter, the petty officer's face earnest under the floodlights. Heard about the inquiry, Sarge. Team's got your back. Hale put in a good word. She nodded, keeping her pace even, the gravel crunching underfoot. Focus on your quals, Lang. This is Command's wheel. But his words eased the isolation. The platoon's quiet support was a ripple, her act seeding doubt in the rigid order. Rex pressed close, his warmth cutting the chill, his senses attuned to her tension without a bark. By midnight, as the camp settled into the hum of generators and distant coyote calls, Reyes lay in her cot, staring at the tent ceiling. The inquiry was just the start, tribunal potential, evals scrutinized, her path to advancement shadowed. Yet the boy's rescue echoed louder, a life pulled from the ledge, because she'd listened to the cry and the dog that heard it first. Hale passed her rack later, pausing in the dim light. We'll navigate it, Reyes. Your call was right, even if the book disagrees. His voice was low, the admission a bridge across the fracture. Dawn would bring the convoy to Pendleton, the reckoning public now, statements, panels, the institution's gaze. But in the quiet, with Rex curled at her feet, Reyes felt the shift. Her defiance not a break but a catalyst, loyalty to the team, to the oath spirit, could bend the chain without shattering it. The canyon's echo had reached base, and the moral test evolved, from personal choice to institutional echo, where one handler's stand might rewrite the protocols guarding the vulnerable. The night held its breath, the legacy unfolding in the disciplined dark. The convoy rumbled out of the Mojave at first light, a line of Humvees kicking up dust plumes that trailed like fading echoes across the interstate toward Pendleton. Reyes rode in the rear vehicle, Rex crated beside her, his muzzle pressed against the mesh, black eyes steady on the passing scrub. The engine's low growl vibrated through the seats, mingling with the faint crackle of the platoon radio relaying position checks. Hale rode up front with the evaluators, his silhouette straight-backed, but Reyes caught glimpses in the mirrors, his hand occasionally tapping the dash, a subtle tell of the storm brewing. Confinement to base had stretched through the night, her gear packed under scrutiny, every movement logged like a post-op timeline. Pendleton's gates loomed by 0900. The Marine base's sprawl of barracks and ranges, a stark contrast to the canyon's wild isolation. The air here carried the brine of the Pacific, undercut by the sharp scent of gun oil from ongoing quals. They offloaded at the admin block, a squat concrete structure flanked by flagpoles snapping in the coastal wind. Floodlights from the night before still hummed faintly, casting long shadows over the gravel lot where JAG officers waited, briefcases in hand, faces etched with the impartiality of routine audits. Reyes uncrated Rex, clipping his lead with a quiet click, the dog's paws padding soft on the concrete as they fell in behind the platoon. No words passed, the team's nods were enough, silent affirmations amid the chain's tightening grip. The tribunal convened in a windowless conference room, walls lined with faded unit plaques and the hum of an overworked AC unit. Folding tables formed a U, occupied by Captain Ellis, the JAG lead, a stern woman named Lieutenant Commander Vasquez, and a panel of 3 senior officers, their dress blues crisp under fluorescent strips. Hale sat to one side, hands clasped. While Reyes took the witness chair, Rex barred outside with a handler from base K9. The absence gnawed. Without him, the room felt colder, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and fresh printouts, transcripts, eval logs, the boy's medical report. "Staff Sergeant Reyes," Vasquez began, her voice even as she adjusted her glasses. "This hearing addresses your actions during the Coronado field exercise on 15th October, Article 92, UCMJ. Failure to obey order or regulation. Lieutenant Hale, your testimony first." Hale rose, saluting the panel, his posture unyielding as he recounted the op. The cry at 5:30, Rex's initial alert, the base denial at 6 team. "Sergeant Reyes acknowledged my orders to secure the objective," he said. "Gaze forward." But the anomaly's escalation, confirmed civilian distress, presented a tactical pivot. Her initiative with the K9 scout facilitated the extract without full op compromise. Vasquez nodded, pen poised. "Yet you denied her request for visual confirmation, Lieutenant. Protocol prioritizes mission integrity in training scenarios." Hale's pause was measured, the weight of command evident in the subtle clench of his fist. "Affirmative, ma'am, but in Spec Ops, adaptability is doctrine. Reyes's bond with her K9 has proven assets in live environments, Fallujah 09, Hindu Kush sweeps. The delay was 20 minutes. The rescue preserved life without casualty." His words threaded defense through procedure, loyalty to his sergeant surfacing like a hidden current. The panel murmured, one officer, a grizzled colonel, leaning forward. "And the direct radio bypass, that's chain fracture." Hale met his eyes. "Necessity, sir." Base response lagged. The alert indicated imminent risk. Reyes sat silent, her uniform's creases sharp, hands steady on her knees despite the pulse in her temples. The room's AC whispered on, cooling the tension, but sweat beaded under her collar. She'd reviewed her statement a dozen times in the Humvee, facts aligned like waypoints. Timestamps, Rex's cues, the boy's vitals, fractured tibia, moderate blood loss, stable post-extract. Vasquez turned to her. "Sergeant, your account." Reyes stood, voice level as she walked them through it. The canyon's first echo, Rex's bark pulling her gaze to the ledge, the fisher's muffled cries at 652. The dog alerted on scent, blood, human distress. Training protocol allows handler discretion for K9 confirmation in ambiguous threats. She cited the manual, paragraph by paragraph, her tone clipped, professional. No plea for sympathy, just the record, unadorned. The panel flipped pages, the rustle amplifying the scrutiny. "You initiated the scout against order," Vasquez noted. "Why?" Reyes met her gaze. "Conscience aligned with oath, ma'am. The uniform code protects the vulnerable, civilian or not. Waiting risked escalation. Rex's input bridged the gap." The words hung, simple yet seismic, drawing nods from the enlisted witnesses called next. Lang testified first, helmet tucked under arm, his green edges smoothed by nerves. Rex locked on before the second cry, ma'am. Sergeant Reyes held formation until the fisher saved the kid without breaking perimeter. Grant followed, medkit metaphorically at his side. Dehydration onset evident. 30 more minutes and we'd have complications. The platoon filtered in rotations. Their statements a chorus of quiet support, boots echoing on linoleum, salutes crisp, eyes flicking to Reyes with restrained solidarity. No dramatics, just procedural truth. The moral tension laid bare under the lights. Outside, Rex paced his temporary run, ears perked toward the door, his whine faint through the vents. The dog's absence underscored her isolation. But his earlier alert echoed in every testimony, a non-human witness to the rightness of her stand. Vasquez recessed at noon, the panel deliberating in a side room, while the team waited in the hall, benches creaking under tack vests. Hale sat beside Reyes, voice low. They're leaning toward reprimand. Paper trail, no stripe loss. Your record's clean. This could pivot to commendation if K9 protocols update. She nodded, fingers tracing the seam of her glove, the coastal wind rattling the windows like distant rotors. The inquiry had exposed the system's fault lines, rigid orders in fluid scenarios, the human cost of unyielding evals. Whispers from other handlers in the base K9 wing had already stirred, talk of integrating K9 alerts into civilian breach drills, her story rippling through the ranks. By 1400, the panel reconvened, Ellis delivering the interim. Sergeant Reyes, your actions merit formal counseling for chain deviation, but the rescue's efficacy warrants review of training directives. No charges pending. Full report to NavSpec Warcom. Relief washed subtle, a loosening in Hale's stance, but the weight lingered. The counseling session scheduled for 1600, a quiet mark on her file. As they filed out, Lang clapped her shoulder lightly, the gesture passing muster. Team's stronger for it, Sarge. Reyes collected Rex, the dog's tail thumping against her leg as they stepped into the afternoon glare, the Pacific's salt breeze cutting the tension. The tribunal had reckoned publicly, witnesses etching her choice into the institution's memory, but redemption brewed in the aftershocks. Hale's subtle advocacy, the panel's nod to reform. One handler's defiance, guided by a K9's bark, had cracked the order just enough to let light in, protocols evolving, loyalty redefined. The canyon's cry had echoed here to concrete halls and clipboards, transforming personal cost into quiet legacy. Pendleton's ranges thrummed in the distance, drills resuming, but Reyes walked taller, Rex at her side, the bond unbroken amid the system's slow bend. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Elena Reyes reach those who still believe in honor. The salt-laced wind off the Pacific carried the distant crack of rifle fire from Pendleton's ranges as Reyes and Rex made their way back to the transient barracks, the concrete path worn smooth by countless boots. The tribunal's verdict lingered like after-action haze. Formal counseling for the chain deviation, a notation in her file that would shadow promotions for a cycle, but no loss of rank or stripe. Hale had walked her out, his nod brief but weighted. You've set a precedent, Sergeant. Use it. The words echoed in her mind as she clipped Rex's lead to the kennel post, the dog's nose bumping her hand in quiet reassurance. Inside the low-slung building, the air hummed with the low murmur of handlers reviewing logs, the scent of wet fur and kibble mingling with the faint brine. Weeks blurred into the rhythm of base routine. Dawn PT runs along the surf, where waves crashed against the shore like unanswered alerts, and evening briefings in the ops center, fluorescent lights casting stark pools over charts and screens. Reyes reported for her counseling session the next day, a stark room with cinderblock walls and a single metal desk. The officer, a major with a decade in JAG rotations, kept it procedural. Your judgment saved a life, but protocol exists for a reason. Unit cohesion over individual calls. She nodded through it, voice even. Understood, sir. But K9 assets are force multipliers. Their input should factor in civilian anomalies. He jotted notes. The pens scratch a metronome, ending with recommendation forwarded to NavSpec Warcom, dismissed. The ripple began subtly, like radiostatic building to signal. Hale pulled her into a post-tribunal debrief with the platoon, the team arrayed in the ready room, chairs scraped back from folding tables scarred by years of use. What happened in the canyon wasn't just Reyes's stand, he said, his tone measured, eyes sweeping the room. It exposed gaps, training zones bordering civvy trails, K9 protocols lagging on non-threat alerts. Lang leaned forward, his fresh qualls patch still stiff on his sleeve. "Rex heard it first, sir. We need that integrated." Murmurs rippled through the group, Grant adding, "Medevac delays in grey areas cost more than evals." Hale nodded. "Assigning a working group?" Reyes to lead on K9 integration, drawing from her qualls manual and field logs. It was mentorship in motion. Her defiance reframed as expertise, the team's loyalty channeling her isolation into collective push. By month's end, the boys' recovery filtered back through official channels. 10-year-old Alex Rivera, a local kid chasing a feral dog into the restricted zone, now mending at home with a cast and stories for his school. His mother's letter arrived at Base HQ, routed to the commandant's desk. Gratitude etched in careful script, praising the brave dog and his handler who wouldn't let the rocks win. It landed on Ellis's desk during a routine review, the captain's brow furrowing as he forwarded it up the chain. NavSpec Qualcomm's response came in a directive memo, circulated to Spec Ops units. Review of K9 utilization in training perimeters. Recommend handler discretion for verified civilian distress signals, pending field trials. Reyes felt the shift in the quiet ways. During a joint exercise with the K9 wing at Dam Neck, a new handler, Petty Officer Diaz, fresh from Benning, approached her after a scent grid demo. "Heard about the canyon, Sergeant. How'd Rex cue the fisher?" She demonstrated the lead technique, hand signals crisp in the humid air, Rex demonstrating with a low alert on a hidden marker. Diaz nodded, notebook open, the exchange a bridge from her story to the next generation. Off duty. In the kennel annex, where floodlights hummed over wire runs, she reviewed footage from the op with Hale, the lieutenant's input sharpening her report. "Frame it as adaptive command, not rebellion. Your bond with him. It's the edge we train for." Rex lay at their feet, ears twitching at the video's audio, his presence underscoring the trust that had propelled them. The reform solidified at the quarterly Spec Ops Symposium in Coronado. Salt air drifting through open hangar doors as officers gathered around projection screens. Reyes presented the working group's proposal, integrating K9 alerts into anomaly protocols, 30-second scouts without full halt, direct radio escalation for life signs. Slides clicked through canyon maps, timestamps. Rex's harness cam footage blurred for security. The room, colonels, handlers, JAG reps, leaned in, questions sharp but engaged. Liability on false positives? Eval impacts? She fielded them steadily, citing the Rivera's case as precedent, her voice carrying the weight of lived tension. Hale sat in the back row, his salute at the end a quiet affirmation. The panel approved trials. E-pilot programs across Mojave and Afghan Sims, with Reyes as lead instructor. Months later, as winter rains slicked Pendleton's ranges, the legacy took root. A revised field manual circulated, FM3, something, the pages smelling of fresh ink, mandating K9 handler input in perimeter breaches, crediting the Reyes directive in footnotes. She mentored a rotation of new handlers, their boots echoing in the training pits, Rex's barks punctuating drills that now blurred lines between threat and need. Lang, promoted to second lead, confided during a surf run, "Your stand got me thinking, Sarge. Loyalty's not just to orders." The platoon had evolved, their cohesion tighter, forged in the canyon's echo. In the quiet of a dawn patrol sim, Reyes paused at a mock ledge, Rex's nose questing the air. The wind carried no cries, but the memory lingered, a testament to conscience's quiet power. Hale's voice crackled over comms. "Good work, team. Advance." She signaled Rex forward, their bond a steady line through the hierarchy's bend. One bark had sparked reform, turning defiance into doctrine, her integrity a symbol etched into the ranks. Moral strength not in grand gestures, but in the disciplined choice to protect, rippling through the system like an unbreakable lead. In the vast silence of the canyon's memory, Loyalty proved the truest command, binding handler and dog, soldier and oath, in a legacy that outlasted stone. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching The Case of a Cry Echoed in the Canyon. The SEALs K9 looked up and barked toward a narrow ledge. See you in the next one.